Subway/Metro Systems by Samuel Hung and Gregory Muggli. What is the fastest public system in the world that is found in cities? What system enables people in the city to travel to and from work in the matter of minutes instead of walking for hours? What system has helped reduce the ever-present problem that cities face, which is known as traffic congestion? This innovation is not found in the air or even on the ground, but is found under the streets of some of the most busiest and populated cities in the world. This invention is simply known as the subway system. With this new innovation, any person for a small cost is able to travel rapidly between different parts of a city. Subways, aka metro systems, are special kinds of trains that are usually built underground and are often found in populated cities. Subways are typically made up of multiple train lines that start and end in different places, and even sometimes intersect each other in between, allowing passengers to get from one place to another. By operating underground, they help large numbers of people to get around easily, since they still allow space for people to walk, drive, and even take buses up on the street. The first metro was built in 1863 in London, United Kingdom, and was originally named the Metropolitan Railway, but is now known as the London Underground. Its length is of a whopping 402 kilometers, and it's the oldest subway in the world. It's even still in use today. The people of London were facing traffic congestion and inefficient use of time due to the rapidly growing population of London in the late 19th century. They needed a transportation system that would take the people of London quickly to and from the center of London. They had railways and steam trains, but it was not efficient enough since there was only one station inside of the city. They needed an ambitious solution that linked the main railways to the center of the city. The only way in which this idea would have worked is by going underground. Charles Pearson, a lawyer of the City of London, proposed and pushed for the idea of an underground railroad system. Recognizing the increasing congestion in the city and its rapidly growing suburbs, Charles Pearson published a pamphlet arguing for the need of an underground railway system. It was first rejected in 1852, though, but Pearson kept hanging on to the idea. He even helped set up the city terminus to build a railway from Farringdon to King's Cross, which was supported by the City of London. This idea was first mocked at and ignored, but Charles kept on pushing this idea through. The prerequisites for the adoption of the subway in the modern city can be broken down to three categories: needs, resources, and value. City dwellers who began constructing metros and incorporating them into modern cities had to fulfill a fundamental need in order to adopt the innovation known as the metro system. Metro systems have become part of the modern cities in order to satisfy mainly the need for massive and efficient transportation systems in order to spread out from the center of the city to the outskirts. According to the University of North Carolina at Pembroke, during the 19th century, London became the first world city because it had a very large population distributed over a very large geographical area. This dispersion of the population to suburbs was made possible, as we shall see, by the mechanization of transportation. The railroads were built in the beginning of the 1830s. The underground was started in 1865, and there were horse-drawn trams by the 1880s. But by the end of the 19th century, the underground was complete. The result was the linking of the railway termini in the city center and an acceleration of settlement on the city's periphery away from the center. The direct and indirect impact of the railroads on the economy of London is difficult to underestimate. In 1861, 23,000 people were directly employed by the railways. By 1891, the figure was almost 70,000. In addition, 48,000 people were employed in ancillary transport industries. They had families and dependents. Also, the Charles Dickens, an English writer and social critic, website posted an excerpt written by Charles Dickens himself, which describes what London was like in the 19th century. Perhaps the biggest impact on the growth of London was coming of the railroad in the 1830s, which displaced thousands and accelerated the expansion of the city. People living in London were not able to spread outside the city, because that would mean taking hours in order to get to in the city. They soon had to begin to move out from the center of the city because of the fast-growing population due to the many immigrants that they received from all over Europe. The people out in the suburbs The people moved out into the suburbs, but its consequence was having no quick way of going back and forth from the center of the city. Charles Pearson noticed this and began writing pamphlets and campaigning for the first underground subway to be built. Companies began to approve this idea because they realized the big problem that spreading out from the city was. If the people of London were not in the need of a faster and more efficient way of getting in and out of the city, in a way to fit in the growing population, then the construction of the underground London would never have been necessary at all. City dwellers of the modern world could not have adopted subways if certain key resources had not been available. The most important resource that led to the adoption of the subway systems in modern cities is the use of the cut-and-cover tunnel construction technique. According to an article on a website known as Prospects, structural engineering falls under civil engineering, which had a really big boom in the 19th century, especially in London. Structural engineering is a form of engineering in which they ensure buildings or other structures don't bend, twist, collapse, or even vibrate throughout their use. Also, according to Joy Hartman, a structural engineer, in a cut-and-cover tunnel, the structure is built inside an excavation and covered over with backfill material when the construction of the structure is complete. Cut-and-cover construction is used when the tunnel profile is shallow and the excavation from the surface is possible, economical, and acceptable. Open-cut slope is used in areas where sufficient room is available to open-cut the area of the tunnel and slope the sides back to meet the adjacent existing ground line. The slopes are designed similar to any other cut slope, taking into account the natural repulse angle of the in situ material and the global stability. The first metro system was built in London and used the crude yet very effective cut-and-cover technique. It can be expensive, but it's still in use today if the cost is not too much. The only way to make an underground tunnel suitable for subway use in the 19th century was by using the cut-and-cover technique. The main use of this technique is for making tunnels, but was beginning to be less used in the last years of the 19th century because of the boring machines, which were much more economically superior. The cut-and-cover technique is built inside of an excavation that is pre-built and then filled back with backfill material when the construction has been completed. Also, a form of support for the excavation of a new tunnel is the open-cut slope technique, which is more accustomed to using science and math to be built and used in metro tunnels. Finally, these modern city dwellers believe on a set of values that has allowed them to continue to enjoy urban lifestyle. The most important value that led to the adoption of the subway system was efficient use of time. The British historian Prereq once wrote, "Mere numbers are important. There are some thoughts that ought not come to men who are not tightly packed." The culture of the city is unique. It shapes the attitudes of its inhabitants and requires of them special exertions or adjustments. Victorian London forced Londoners into adopting a range of values that comprise an urban mentality. City life had a very special meaning, if not always a very precise one. In the search for that meaning, city dwellers define their relationship to a challenging, if impermanent, environment. Also, according to the University of North Carolina at Pembroke, it says, "In the 19th century, transportation made it possible to live in the suburbs and work in the city." This relationship reveals much about the urban mentality and the preferences and values of the urban builders, householders, and planners. Also, according to the Geography of Life textbook page on Tokyo, it says, "The average commute time in Tokyo is in half an hour each day." The Japanese have adapted to busy rush hours by creating an efficient public transportation system. The Japanese have built some of the fastest trains in the world. These trains are known as bullet trains. The people in London valued efficient use of time, and for that reason, it allowed them to continue to adopt solutions for the problems they were facing. The population in London was growing rapidly, and people had to spread out from the city. The lack of efficiency of their current transportation systems, horses, and traffic jams prevented an efficient use of time. This obstacle led them to adopt and construct the subway/metro system. The people in London came up with a solution that would allow efficient use of time to become available by the construction of the subway system. With this new innovation, it made it possible for the people in London to live in the suburbs and outskirts yet still work in the city without wasting a lot of time traveling to and from work. Throughout this report, we've talked about a need, value, and resource. The value, need, and resource were all very instrumental in the construction of the metro system. And without one of those, the metro system today would not exist. And it would we now take the metro system for granted. However, if it was not here, it would just be simply a dream of having a train that runs underground that makes people travel easily to and from work in a matter of minutes, and not making people walk for hours on end just to try to work for maybe a couple of hours, then come home with absolutely no energy to do anything else but sleep. Thank you for listening to our presentation. This presentation has been a presentation by Samuel Hong and Gregory Muggli.